I would like to introduce our honored speaker, Rabbi Shoshana Kaminsky, and who has come to speak to us about wrestling with God. Thank you, Rabbi.
Hi, good morning. I thought this morning I would share with you an example of what it means when Jews study sacred text. And if you grew up in some Christian context, probably our way of studying texts would be utterly mind-blowing to you, which will be fun. This was the suggested illustration for the program for this morning. It's Jacob wrestling with an angel, which is great. One of the questions we're going to explore, actually the main question we're going to explore, is who does Jacob wrestle with? That's a question. And how wonderful to have this reading about translation, because, of course, what we are looking at is a translation. And I'll have the original text in Hebrew in front of me as well. But let's see, can we have the first slide, please? So this is Genesis chapter 32, verses 25 to 33. It's a very short segment. And so Jacob, just to set the context, he has come back to the land of Canaan after 20 years in exile. He knows he has to face his brother Esau. Esau has come to meet him with 400 men accompanying him. By the way, I chose this particular passage because this was the reading for Shabbat in synagogues around the world yesterday morning. So at this point, he has taken his vast family, servants, animals, and has taken them all to the other side of the Yabbok River, and Jacob was left alone. And a figure wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven, Sarita, with beings divine and human, and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle. So this is a pretty good translation of this text. And as you can read it, you can see, hopefully, we have no idea what's happening here, right? Absolutely no idea. I want to start with verse 25. Jacob was left alone. It says, and a figure wrestled with him, but the Hebrew actually says a man wrestled with him, or a person wrestled with him. It does not say an angel wrestled with him. Never says an angel wrestled with him. And as you could see, we're lacking proper nouns. We don't know who's doing what here, who is wrestling with who is asking to be released, who is not letting him go until he gives him a blessing, who blesses who. It's entirely up to us, which opens up this wonderful, wonderful world of interpretation. And so what I'm going to explore with you are some of the varying interpretations of this passage. If we can look at the next slide, please. And so this is a screenshot from a website. All of this presentation is taken from a website called Sefaria.org, the most awesome Jewish website in history. I no longer need rabbinic books because everything I need is on this website. And so, and so if you click on verse 25 of this passage, then it opens up for you the world of interpretation. And I want to call your attention to the upper right-hand side that says commentary. And you see there are 119 different commentaries on this one passage. Now, life is made a little bit easier if you're not a Hebrew, if Hebrew is not a language of yours, because most of the commentaries are in Hebrew. A few of them are available in English, say 20. But we have within the Jewish tradition this idea of holding differing opinions and interpretations at the same time, even interpretations that contradict one another. And when we have this text, which is so elusive and ambiguous, then it just really, really opens up the possibilities for interpretation. So I'm going to look at a few of those interpretations with you. So let's have the next slide. This interpretation is by Radak. Radak is an abbreviation for Rabbi David Kimchi, who was a rabbi and philosopher who lived in the south of France. He died in 1235. I haven't memorized everybody's dates. That's just one that stuck with me. And so he looks at the word ish, which I said here it was translated as a figure, but it really means a person or a man. And it says the same type of ish, that word, as in Joshua 5:13, i.e. an angel. This was the angel Gabriel, described as using that word ish in Daniel 9:21. I just want to pause for one moment and insert my own thoughts, which is that there's another obvious passage where angels show up, but they come as anashim, as people, and that's in Genesis chapter 18, where it says God appeared to Abraham at the groves of Mamre, and he looked up and there were 3 men standing before him. But we find out eventually that they're angels. So they don't cite that particular text, but clearly there are other places where when we see the word ish, meaning person, we understand that it means angel, and the particular angel we're talking about is Gabriel. The reason why these angels are called ish is because they appear to the people with whom they converse in human guise. The types of angels who speak with man are referred to as ish, as they appear either in a vision or while the person to whom they appear is fully awake. God had sent this angel to Yaakov, Jacob, to strengthen his courage, not to fear Esau, his brother. If Yaakov could prevail over an angel, surely he had no reason to be afraid of an encounter with someone like Esau. The fact that the struggle lasted until daybreak was an allusion to Yaakov that after a period of night, i.e. problems, adversity, there would come a period of light, peace and prosperity coupled with security. So it's not a literal night. It's a metaphor for the dark night of the soul. Yesterday, I happened to be attending synagogue in Indianapolis with my colleague, Rabbi Ben Sendro, who introduced me to a completely new way of looking at this. And he asked the question, is it even physically possible to wrestle all night? How long does your average wrestling match last? So he said, think about it. What's the only way that somebody could possibly wrestle all night? And his theory is if you were asleep. If you're asleep, you can wrestle in your dream. And so his understanding of this passage is that it is a dream, which is yet a different interpretation of this. But here, Rabbi David Kimchi says, who did he wrestle with? He wrestled with the angel Gabriel, just like in this picture. He wrestled with the angel Gabriel, who was there to to set him up so that he would feel confident facing his brother the next morning, because if he could defeat an angel, surely his brother was not a threat. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So this interpretation comes from Rashi, Rabbi Solomon, the son of Yitzchak, Shlomo ben Yitzchak, who is our most famous interpreter of sacred texts. He lived also in France about 100 years earlier than Rabbi David Kimchi. And he draws often on earlier interpretations and shares them with us. And he looks at the word vayeh ish, a man wrestled, and looks at the word avak and understands that it could mean dust. And so he quotes a rabbi named Menachem ben Sorok, who says a man covered himself with dust, taking the term as connected in the sense with dust. It would mean that they were raising the dust with their feet through their movement. So that's how violent this wrestling was. It was so violent that it raised dust. I, however, am of opinion that it means he fastened himself on, and that it is an Aramaic word, as from the Talmud. He quotes a source that shows it being used to mean attached to. And elsewhere in the Talmud, he twined with loops, so interconnected. It denotes intertwining. For such is the manner of two people who make strong efforts to throw each other. One clasps the other and twines himself round him with his arms, which, as the very, very recently passed away great Rabbi Arthur Waskow observed, wrestling is not really that different from embracing. So here are these two figures. They're wrestling, but they are twined together in an embrace. Our rabbis of blessed memory explained that he was Esau's guardian angel. So it wasn't the angel Gabriel, and it was a different angel. It was Esau's guardian angel, because according to the ancient rabbis, we all have our own guardian angels. And so that's who Jacob wrestled with. But he wrestled with him in an incredibly intimate and really loving way. And then the next day, when Esau and Jacob meet each other, they embrace, even though Esau's got his 400 armed men with him. Next slide. This is a commentator that I'm not that familiar with called Tur HaAroch. This is a much later commentator who lived about in the 14th century. And so he looks at the words vayeh ish imo, a man wrestled with him. The word vayeh describes an activity similar to vayichabek. He embraced him, presumably in a kind of bear hug. And for this, we need to understand this game that the rabbis play. Just because we have this word spelled in a particular way, doesn't mean we can't just experimentally swap out the letters, see what happens. So vayeh, he wrestled with him. Vayichabek, he hugged him. You just need to swap out one letter, and then it's almost the same word. Really, it's just one letter difference. And so again, drawing back on our previous interpretation that we have of this intertwining between the two figures. And here the Tur HaAroch doesn't theorize who he wrestles with. It just says, well, this is how we understand it. So, and I think we can stop the slides at this point. We're not going to do the last slide. These are just examples of who he might have wrestled with. There is also a rabbinic understanding that he wrestled with his brother, that he wrestled with Esau. And there is also an understanding that he wrestled with his own conscience, which will explain why the pronouns are so confused, why we really don't understand who he's wrestling with. In this discussion that I was part of yesterday, somebody said, can you really wrench your hip if you're wrestling with yourself? Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're tossing and turning in bed. And this is not a minor injury. This is an injury that stays with Jacob for the rest of his life. He has that mark. He twists his oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the muscle, but that one that you really feel when you twist it. So that's an injury that stays with him for life. It's a mark upon him. And so this is just a quick introduction to interpretations. There's this marvelous passage in the Talmud, this compendium of rabbinic wisdom that was finished about 1,500 years ago, where somebody asks the question, well, what's the correct answer? And the reply is, Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim ha'chaim. These and these are the words of the living God. They're all correct. So you can have all of contradictory answers, and they are all the word of God. So at the end of the day, you can look at this beautiful old wood carving and decide whether this is an accurate depiction of the story, and your own interpretations are also the words of the living God. So, thank you.